see the values that we see in our beautiful, noble Quran and through the example of our Prophet, peace be upon him. So my name is Aziza, like I mentioned, and I head an organization called New Ground, a Muslim-Jewish Partnership for Change. I was hired by the Muslim Public Affairs Council to start that organization. And really I bring Muslims and Jews together. So I have a lot of difficult conversations all the time. And that's actually the essential premise of what we do. We treat conflict as a natural part of human relationship. And what does it mean to look at our disagreement as a way to make things better and to make things stronger instead of weaker? So when I first started off, I remember one of the rabbis, that we were convening and we were trying to build allies, that's an important part of what we were doing. He looked at me, and at the time, Israel was building what they were calling the security fence. Some people still call it the security fence. And I remember him looking straight at me, and we had built a relationship up until this point. And he looked at me and he said, "You know what, Aziza, I still believe in this fence. It saves my daughter, and there is no other option." And in that moment, I remember thinking, whoa, how am I going to get through this one? So one option was to freeze and not say anything at all. Another option is to figure out how we can continue to build the conversation, to make it a better conversation. And so I look back at the Noble Quran. One of the verses says, "Idfa billati hiya ahsan, فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ." It says, push forward in a way that is better until your enemy may become your friend, your dearest friend. It's waliyyun hamim. It's not even like friend. It's actually a deeper friendship. And that's exactly what conflict can take us. It can take us into a much deeper place. But we can't get to that place unless we work on ourselves first. So to start us off, I want to ask everybody, anybody have any challenges that they've ever dealt with anybody else in their life? You don't have to say the challenge.
Yes.
Yes? Good. Thank you. It's unfortunate. It is part of human relationship.
Yes.
It is with your child, it is with your mother, it is with your brother, whatever.
Life is a challenge.
Life is a challenge. So right now, we're going to take a concept that is called heart math. Dr. Hassan used to do this all the time. And so we're gonna work on both. So what I'm gonna ask you to do is, we're at the Islamic Center, so I'm gonna ask you to trust me. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna put both feet flat on the floor. You're gonna take your hands, whatever you're holding, just make sure that it's there, you're comfortable. You're gonna make sure that your hands are comfortable, whether they're on your legs, whether they're up. It's just that you are purposely in a state of comfort, not that something's falling off or whatever. Okay, and so now I'm going to ask you to just close your eyes for just a moment. You're going to close your eyes, and you're going to take a deep breath. Let's inhale all the way in, and exhale all the way out. Push it all the way out. Let's take another inhale all the way in, and exhale all the way out. Keep your eyes closed and think about a challenge that you recently had. You won't share this challenge, it will stay in your mind. Just think of that challenge. What happened? What unfolded? Think of the details that made your blood pressure rise, that made the anxiety and the tension come into your chest. What happened? What were some of the details? What did somebody do? How did you respond? Now pay attention to what happened to you physically. What was your physical response to this? Take another deep breath and push it out. Now I want you to continue thinking about this challenge. Keep your eyes closed. Continue thinking about the challenge. Now I want you to think of something that you're grateful for. Something that a moment, an experience of gratitude that you have felt. It could be anything. What happened? Remember the emotion that you felt. Now thinking of another thing that you're grateful for. What happened? What was it that made it a beautiful moment? Was it somebody's action? Was it your action? Was it the sun? Was it, what was it? What is it? An experience recently. Now we're going to think of a third thing. Something else that you're grateful for. Could be an experience, could be you sitting in the park, could be anything. Something you're grateful for. Take it in. Now I want you to go back to that challenge. Keep your eyes closed. Look at that challenge that you were facing. Think of the big picture, what it is that you still want to resolve, and how you might be able to move forward in a constructive way. Now as you open your eyes, take another deep breath and let it out. Was the challenge in any way, what was it like to relive your challenge?
Still hard.
Hard. Very hard, right?
No, still the same. I mean, like before and after.
Uh-huh. That there is a challenge there. How do you feel thinking about the bigger perspective of the challenge itself?
You mean by bigger perspective, what will happen in the near future or further? This is what I would consider.
Uh-huh.
as
Precisely. Actually, that's an important question. How are we looking at our future instead of staying stuck where we were? How are we looking at how we can move forward?
It's like you can maybe step away from the emotions and look at it in a more constructive way.
Mm-hmm. Let go of some of that really anguish, and it's still there, but like there's another lens by which you can see it. So this concept is actually being used in a lot of corporations across America, and it's not a new concept. Dr. Hassan, God bless his soul, has this beautiful CD that you can get from the bookstore, and he talks about the way he would describe it to me was you would wake up in the morning hours after Fajr, after you've done your prayers, and he would sit looking outside his window, and he would contemplate and meditate on the words, the names of Allah, and on all the different names. And he would just take one word. He would say, Wadud, Wadud, Wadud. And he would repeat it over and over again until hopefully he was thinking and contemplating and meditating on what it means to have love, to have all-encompassing love surrounding you and bring it into your life so that you can bring it and share it with others. And it's this concept and this reminder of meditation and gratitude that is something that is actually quite ancient. It's rooted in Islam. And it's an important tool to help us actually work through conflict. That when we're feeling stuck, we have to take a moment. And some conflict resolution experts, like if you want to read more, there's this great book called Getting to Yes by William Ury. He talks about sometimes you have to go to the balcony. You have to take a step back. And literally, it's just taking a step and taking your breath of fresh air. Because that gives you some perspective. So in the Quran itself, so like I mentioned with that earlier piece of where I was confronting and talking to my rabbi friend and having a really hard time with it because all I could think of, oh, well, are you serious? Like Palestinian suffering, that doesn't matter at all? And so I was really heavy in that moment. Well, any ideas on what the Quran actually says about how we can converse with people with whom we disagree?
Common topics.
Common topics?
Yes.
Yes. Building common ground. That is definitely something. I'm thinking of a particular verse in the Quran. It says, "Jadilhum billati hiya ahsan." So it's basically like engage with them, build with them in ways that are better. So if you think of jadala actually comes, anyone familiar with the term jadude? So that's actually what do you call it? It's a braid. If you think of a braid, or whether it's a rope or a woman's hair, you're taking 3 different strands and you're weaving them together over and in and around each other. And at the end, you come out with a much stronger, more beautiful and resilient product. It has many benefits. But if you were to take the strand, it would just be blowing in the air, it would be subjected to the elements. But this braid makes it even better. So the question becomes, how do we take it and build and braid together so that I'm not giving up who I am? I'm actually building on what you're saying, and I'm saying, you know what? I also have something really important to add to this conversation. And I think that as allies, we can build a better place together. But it can't just be your strand singular from mine. We have to actually weave them together. So the next thing we're going to try is something called yes and. So yes and is something, again, corporations are using it. Clearly, the act of braiding uses it, and that's exactly what we'll practice. So what I'm going to ask you to do is you're going to find somebody that you don't know, and you will rehearse with that person. Anybody feel like they could volunteer? Be a volunteer real quick with me. Just to demonstrate. All right, thanks, Hada. Okay, so you can stay where you are. So we're going to build a story together. What we'll do is I'll start the story. You'll take the very end of my story and you'll repeat it, and you'll say yes and you'll bring in another part of the story. As big as the story can be, the better. But the idea is that we're building on, because we're just practicing this muscle of building yes and weaving these ideas together. So the more exciting you get, the better it will be. So once upon a time, there was this little girl, and she loved candy. She loved candy so much that her mom and her would make cotton candy in the kitchen.
So once upon a time, there was a little girl who loved candy so much that her mom and her would make cotton candy in the kitchen. Yes. And she loved to share her candy with her friends, and so she would invite them to the activity to make cotton candy together, and it was a very happy time.
Beautiful. So she would invite her friends to come, and together they would make this cotton candy, and it was a very happy time. And it became such a wonderful event that they started became their activity for the neighborhood association, and that's how neighbors got to get to know each other. It actually built a lot of important bonds for them as people who wanted to be there for each other. So I'll stop you there. So she's going to take the end of my story and she'll continue to build on it. All right, are we clear on the directions? So we're going to come back together and we'll continue to build. But right now, all we're doing is think of this as like a muscle that you have to keep exercising in your head. If we're going to continue to weave, and especially we practice on the easy stuff first, because eventually, remember, we're going to get into the hard stuff. When you get into the difficult conversations, it'll be harder to weave. All right, so please stand up, find somebody next to you who you don't know already. Introduce yourself, and then the first person is going to say, I'll start, and you'll build on each other's story. It's literally, we're just practicing the muscles, okay? All right, please, find somebody. Okay. You guys want to do the story together? If you guys want to be together, that's fine. Does that work? Just build the story together. You're not going to share the story. Yeah, sit down. However you're comfortable. Yeah. Okay, I would say you're gonna leave? Really? Oh, who's that? Oh, I'm so glad. So glad you came. Yeah, have an open mass festival. I think you have the flyer. Yes, they have if you know anybody who would like to come, please definitely invite them. And if you want to volunteer, we'd love to have one. So thank you. Yeah, thank Hello, welcome. Come on in. Please have a seat.
it's open.
So, let's see.
Okay, start wrapping up your story and then say
It just
thank
so
you.
happened
It's
that
wonderful,
the
very
problem
good.
brought me to the
Start wrapping up your story.
and then I met an elder
Explain this. Right now they're doing an exercise. So like the phenomenon says you need to speak to people in ways that are better, and it actually says like essentially like taking your ideas and braiding them into other people's ideas. What we're doing is we're taking stories and we're saying yes and every time someone says something, and then we also have something as well. And so we're building that muscle, I guess, in our ammunition to help be able to talk through things in a way that helps encourage us.
works and operates and bring it ammunition to the solution.
Okay, so if I could have
It was all by
you. Thank you. So did you enjoy your stories? Did you create something you've never heard before?
Yeah.
Yes?
We did something deep.
Okay, good. Fabulous. You just really went into it. Okay, so for now, let's go around in a full circle. So because now we've got a little bit more practice with it. Which is everyone comfortable standing? Is that going to be okay? Okay, is that going to be okay? Okay, great. So if we everybody stand for a moment. Hello, come on in. So we're practicing something called yes and. We're going to be building, so the person in front of you tells a story, you say part of their story, you say yes and you add a new part to your story. Okay? All right, so here we go. So make sure everybody can see each other. You just scoot in a little bit more and help us out.
Are we sharing our stories?
No, not in our story. Now we're making a whole new one. Okay. Because the idea is that we just keep practicing the muscle. All right, so remember, the bigger, the most outlandish, like extraordinary, the better it is that we're actually practicing getting the words out of our mouth. Like that's an important thing. So that's why the bigger, the better. So here we go. Once upon a time, there was a group of people that came together at the Islamic Center in Southern California. And they were made up of men and women and children, and they decided they wanted to do something different, where they wanted to bring people in and make sure that they were working on themselves, and they all agreed that they wanted to make a giant snow cone.
So am I supposed to repeat your story?
Not the whole thing, just take the very end. So the giant snow cone and then add.
And so, given the diversity of the group of people that came together, everybody had a unique idea of what the snow cone should look like. So yes, some people even brought in their own presentations and PowerPoints and
Excuse me, how do you mean by snow cone?
Snow cone? So that's the thing, like you're going to have license later to be more creative. So I was just thinking of like, it's like ice and sugar on top, right? So we're going to make a giant snow cone.
Okay, can I add? So the snow cone actually was representative
Oh,
of...
hold on. It's going to be him next,
Okay.
and then you, and then
Oh,
you.
okay.
Okay? So just wait. Yes.
Yeah, so everyone bring their own ideas, presentation how to make a beautiful snow cone, and then because it's a very big, they then plan to really engage for several days, organize a nice get together, and the snow cone was not enough, and then they also bring some special. Fruits or some exotic from their own, the families,
So, what is
Just make
it?
sure you say end the story and yes and. So just making sure.
There was a lot of different people involved, especially children. One of the children raised the point that, hey, Daddy, let's go to the ice house. They have plenty of ice, and they can chop it up for us, and we will bring that to help make our snow cone.
And, yes, and. the children was representative of the solution. The snow cone was representative of the subject of what people's emotions were. And even though it was a physical replica of an item that was built, it was also representative of unity and different emotions that people were feeling. So every time the snow cone was built, it was creating solution, but it was also bringing people together in unison for what they were feeling. They were all synchronizing with Allah, and they were synchronizing by building the snow cone.
Yeah, we're talking about a snow cone.
Are you listening? Okay, but
You want to build a snowball?
Okay, building blocks.
Builder blocks? Oh, so it sounds like now we have snow cone building blocks. Beautiful. Please build on a castle with blocks.
say about them to the whole group. The what? They can't hear you.
No worries. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. There you go. Keep building. Keep building.
Sorry, don't dare.
It's supposed to be exciting.
I don't know where. Those are don't.
Alright, it's okay. We'll just skip over and we'll come back if you guys want to, okay? So we got a castle with a snow cone. Continue.
I said something.
So just continue.
I'm lost.
No worries.
So as everyone was trying to come up with a solution, they got better at solving problems. They got better at solving problems and helping them their lives in other areas as well. And so by the end of the snow cone building exercise, everybody was improved a bit in that area.
Beautiful. So now building. Okay. Alright, that's fair.
Different people, different ideas, but our group only one. Or our community needs we can is together here, work, or watch other religion. They come together, we work together for the society. But what we don't care that who is the person or the neighborhood, they are my religion or another religion. We are need is together one goal, going better, or I'm doing our religion keep us inside, or we can give the teach our next generation how do you go the forward.
Beautiful. So moving forward.
I'm not different.
Alright, that's fair.
Okay, after they built up the snow with the varieties of people, opinion and idea, the snow becomes very good, but the kids are very like wild. Somebody just jumped on the snow mess. Everybody said, "Oh, what a big mess! You messed up all those things." And they said, "Don't get upset. We'll rebuild the game."
Ah, beautiful. So we got some caretakers.
Yes, so the kids needing to rebuild, well, the group decided that the kids, because they liked the ice blocks and they were able to get it from the store, the kids would work on building an ice block castle, and the adults would focus on the snow cones, and they all picked 3 flavors that they liked.
Yes, it seems that so far they have started building, but mainly they need to have had an organization, so there is a leader, they assigned the leader of the group, and they divided the working people. One to build the cone itself, which is paper cone, and the others would concentrate on crushing the ice. And another group would crush the ice, another group would pour the flavor, so they can work towards one goal, which is building the bigger snow cone.
So the kids, they already destroyed the snow cone. So for they make a planning to build up new one. So they have, from the build up new one, they have to make a plan. Who gonna do it and learn all these smart way and bring more volunteer to add it up. So that's where they can organize and they can learn more, each group, other group, so look forward.
Yes, and so from that experience, they learned how to build consensus among themselves. And then they also decided not to just leave it there. They decided to have a tradition of every year building a snow cone. So, this tradition went on and everybody benefited from it.
And finally the snow cone is made. So yeah, they invite other people to see how it's beautiful and they explain their experience, how they made it. So
They taught more people how to make snow cones. You get to close our story.
The snow cone is, everybody likes the snow cone. It's a wonderful thing to have. And the children and the parents all get together and they build the snow cone together and then live happily ever after.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, now you can have a seat. Thank you for indulging and going through with this. So, the really this, I know it was a little bit off, different parts always feel weird as you're trying on new things, but the whole part of the point of this is that the more we practice, just instead of saying the word but, so like saying, but, and then mentioning all the awful things that could possibly happen, if we take the best of what people say and we build on it, then we have a place where we can continue to build. Actually, Surah 39:18 in Zumar, it's in Juz 23, it actually says that those who listen and follow the best of what is said, those are the rightly guided and the people of understanding. And so it's taking the best of what people say and continuing to build on it. Taking that yes and continuing instead of focusing on what we can't do. So any guesses of how many times mercy appears in the Quran? 400. 400. That's really good. Well, okay, so mercy and forgiveness and compassion will appear 400 times. So mercy has 200 times. But if you think about it, mercy and is we heard some of the verses earlier. It is something that is when we connect to the mercy, when it says when you actually make your act with the Rahman, you are making a covenant. You're connecting to and you're building into a better place. And that's something that when we're living the values that we see in the Quran will only make us stronger. So with that said, when I go back to my rabbi story, so we had that really tough conversation, and what's interesting is several months ago now, he calls me, I'm in the backyard with my kids, and he says, Aziza, a whole bunch of people are going to the airport. No, he says, Aziza, let's go to the airport. This is the time of the first Muslim ban. And my response to him was, you gotta be kidding. You wanna go to the airport? They're gonna arrest us for stopping the traffic because it's already a problem. And so that call that I made was I couldn't have been more wrong. There were hundreds of people that showed up to support Muslims, to stand there with Muslims. And a lot of them are the faces that I've talked to, that other people in the community have talked to, but the faces of people who we've continued to build relationships with. And we're actually really there for each other. In fact, a number of those faces are also going to have another convening right now in downtown LA starting from 12 to 4 today. And they just want to be there for Muslims to stand side by side. And so while these relationships, while it takes a lot out of you to say yes and, to reflect on the gratitude when your buttons are being pushed, it has really important relationships that really help people transform into our dearest friends. And I think that's something that is worthy of investing in. And so in 2 weeks, Prema has been really wonderful and helped organize our open mosque day. We had one also last year, but it's really our opportunity to welcome people who are non-Muslims and Muslims alike, just to have really beautiful community here at the Islamic Center. We're going to have tours, we're going to have calligraphy. The whole idea is that it becomes a wonderful, engaging space where we put our smiles on our faces and we just build some relationships. So if you are interested in volunteering, Prema has a sign-up sheet for you.
Oh, there's one for volunteering and the other one's for vendors.
Excellent. So I'll just I'll do this one this way. Okay. So one is for volunteering and one is for vendors. So if you want to be somebody who volunteers to have a table and just do something fun at your table, we want that. If you want to tell a story about what the Islamic Center means to you and an experience that happened within these walls, then we want you. If you want to lead a tour, then also we would love to have you. But we're going to continue to build on these relationships and what it means to say yes and. And
what day is that?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked.
October 29th.
October 29th. So I'm going to forward these around.
And it's from 11 to 3 p.m. But for volunteers and vendors, we ask that you guys arrive like an hour early to like set up and everything.
What time the kids are here?
So
11 to 3.
11 to 3.
11.
Yeah. So it'll be
during the kids here in school.
right. So if you can even volunteer during the Sunday program, we would love to have you. But really the idea is that we're opening our doors and we're having a fun time doing it. We're building community with people at the Islamic Center and with people from outside the Islamic Center. So please share, and if you're available, we would love to have you for however long you are available. And if you would like, so in addition to this one day, now separately, like with my newsground hat, which I told you about earlier, bringing Muslims and Jews together, if you're interested in sitting down for like 8 months and having a conversation with Muslims and Jews, we have at least 2 more spots available starting this Thursday, where people come together once every 2 weeks to have some practice with building on each other's conversations. So if you're interested, come to me and let me know. Otherwise, I'd like to loop back to the very first thing that I brought up from the Financial Times. What's interesting is like, as polarized as things are, and as tough as the conversations become, when we're trying to, like clearly, like this whole article is about divorce. But it's more than just divorce. Like there's stuff on our headlines all the time, and we can allow it to drag us down, or we can really work hard through it. And sometimes, we have to make the what's God knows what bets, and we do the best that we can do. But what's interesting here that I could just one more minute and then I'll wrap up. One of the things she says, and it's in really big letters, she says, "I'm a very expensive shoulder to cry on." So the cost of not working through and being committed to working through things and it's a really tough cost to shoulder. And we can live really rich, beautiful lives by being able to really try to emulate and live through those values of what it means to build on each other's ideas. Thank you so much for joining me, and
And she's stitching to have like a display table. Oh, that's beautiful with angel and yeah, they have like the paintings. Hi, how are you?